He was my brother for over a decade until greed, lies, and one betrayal tore everything apart. I never thought I'd write one of these, but here I am. I'm Travis, 31 now. And if you told me 10 years ago that I'd be writing a story about how my best friend since childhood became someone I can't even look in the eye anymore, I would have laughed in your face. Back then, Josh and I were like one person. Same street in a scrappy little neighborhood in Minnesota, same beat-up bikes, same cleats on the dusty baseball field. You couldn't say Travis without Josh tagging along right after. We were just that kind of duo. We both came from nothing. His dad was a mechanic who drank too much and yelled more than he fixed cars. My mom cleaned houses 6 days a week and smoked menthols like it was oxygen. We learned early how to share because if one of us had a bag of chips, that meant it was for both of us. If one had a jacket, the other borrowed it when the temperature dropped. Josh even got me through the worst stretch of my life when my older brother died in a car accident senior year. He sat on the edge of my bed every single day that week and didn't say a word unless I needed him to. That's just who we were. I would have done anything for him. I thought he felt the same. After high school, Josh took a different route. I went to community college, scraped through classes, and ended up landing a decent job at a warehouse. He didn't have the grades or the patience for school. Ended up jumping from job to job, dishwasher, tire shop, some construction gigs. He was always talking about getting his act together, but it was like every time he got close, he'd self-destruct. Still, we stayed close. He'd crash at my place when things got rough at home, and once I had my own one-bedroom apartment, he basically had a key. It all started to change about 3 years ago. I met someone. Her name was Rachel, and we hit it off fast. She worked at the pharmacy near my job and had that kind of dry wit that made you feel like you'd known her forever. I was stupid happy, the kind of happy that makes your friends roll their eyes and tell you to chill. Josh was weird about it from the start. He joked around like always, but I could feel this weird edge in his voice. Don't forget about your boy when she upgrades you to a real apartment. Stuff like that. I laughed it off, figured he was just adjusting to things changing. But he didn't adjust. He got worse. The first real sign was the birthday incident. It was Rachel's birthday, and I threw her a small get-together at my place. Nothing big, just a few friends, music, drinks, some barbecue in the backyard. I invited Josh like always. He showed up already tipsy, loud as hell, and made a scene in front of everyone. Called Rachel Princess, all night in this mocking tone, and kept cracking jokes about how Travis finally found someone who can cook better than ramen noodles. I pulled him aside, tried to talk to him, and he brushed me off like I was overreacting. I should have taken that as the warning it was. It escalated from there. He started texting Rachel behind my back. I only found out because she showed me. At first it was casual. Hey, can you tell Travis to call me? Then it got weirder. You sure he's treating you right? If he ever slips up, you know where I'm at. That kind of trash. I confronted him, and he laughed in my face. Said it was just jokes. Relax, bro. You know I wouldn't do that to you. But the tone wasn't funny anymore. It was predatory. We didn't talk for a couple months after that. I told him straight up that if he ever texted her again, we were done. He promised he wouldn't. Swore on his mother. And stupid me, I believed him. Because that's Josh, right? He gets stupid, then he feels bad. Then he goes back to being the guy who once gave me his winter coat when mine had holes in it. What finally broke it all was last summer. Rachel and I were thinking about moving in together, maybe even getting engaged. I hadn't told many people, but I did mention it to Josh. He didn't say much when I told him, just nodded and said, "Cool, man. Hope it works out." Then 3 weeks later, I got a message from a friend of mine who works at a bar on the other side of town. Said he saw Josh there one night, sloppy drunk, telling some girl that Rachel used to mess around with him behind my back. My friend didn't want to believe it, said it sounded like bull, but thought I should know. I drove straight to Josh's apartment, pounded on the door until he opened up. He looked like crap, bloodshot eyes, t-shirt stained with something I didn't want to identify. I didn't yell. I didn't swing. I just asked him straight up, "Are you telling people you and Rachel were together?" He stared at me, dead in the eye, and said, "Maybe I am. Maybe you should ask her who she really wanted." That was it. That was the moment I realized this person, this brother I thought I had, was gone. I didn't even respond. I turned around and walked away, deleted his number, blocked him on everything. When I told Rachel, she broke down crying, swore up and down nothing ever happened. And I believe her. I really do. But that didn't take away the sting. It didn't erase the image of Josh, drunk and smirking, trying to burn down everything I had just because he couldn't stand the idea of me being happy. The sad thing is, even now, sometimes I still catch myself thinking about the good stuff. The summers we'd ride our bikes down to the lake and skip rocks until sunset. The way he showed up at my brother's funeral in a suit 2 sizes too big and didn't leave my side once. I don't know what broke him. I don't know when he turned from the kid I trusted with my life into the kind of man I wouldn't trust with my garbage. But he did. And I'm done pretending that loyalty means keeping someone in your life who would stab you the second you turn your back. We left Minnesota in Josh's mom's old Honda Civic with the windows stuck half open and a stereo that only played CDs. I still remember how it smelled: cigarettes, cheap air freshener, and that faint mechanical oil scent that clung to everything Josh owned. We were 20, broke, and stupidly optimistic, heading to Chicago like we had any idea what the hell we were doing. Josh had found a room for rent on Craigslist, and we split it. One mattress on the floor, secondhand furniture, and a shower that never got past lukewarm. But none of that mattered. We were out. We were free. We were going to build something. I landed a job first, working logistics for a small warehouse on the south side. Not glamorous, but it paid better than anything back home. Long hours, crap management, back-breaking work. Welcome to adulthood. Josh bounced around a bit. Worked at a burrito place, then at a tech help desk, then nothing. Said he was waiting on something big. And honestly, I believed him. Because Josh always talked big, and sometimes, somehow, it actually worked out. That's how he was. The idea came a few months in. We were at this greasy diner near Logan Square, nursing hangovers and eating pancakes that tasted like regret. He looked up from his notebook, which he always carried and filled with garbage half-formed ideas, and said, "Groceries. Delivery. Not like Instacart. We go door to door with our own supply. No middlemen. No markup. Local stuff. Direct. Fresh. Trust." I laughed and told him that sounded like a logistical nightmare, but he just kept going. Drew sketches, listed startup costs, talked about buying bulk at wholesalers and making runs through neighborhoods with a van. It was absurd and half-baked, but he had that energy, that manic excitement that made it feel like maybe this wasn't completely insane. A few weeks later, he quit his job and registered the LLC. Fresh Drive, he called it. He made a logo on Canva and ordered 500 flyers before he had a website or inventory. At first, it was just him and a cooler in the Civic. He'd drive to a discount grocery outlet, load up, and knock on doors with samples. Bananas, cereal, eggs. Talk to people like he was pitching $1 million product instead of $3 milk. Shockingly, a few signed up. Mostly older folks or busy parents in the area. He kept notes in his spiral-bound notebook, names and preferences, and little details like Mrs. Nguyen doesn't like bruised fruit. It was old school, messy, and it actually started growing. By spring, he had 30 regular customers. Enough to cover costs, barely. We were still eating ramen most nights, but he was onto something. I'd help when I could. Making runs on my days off, setting up a spreadsheet to replace his chicken scratch notes, driving with him to supplier meetings. He talked about scaling, getting a proper van, building an app. Then he dropped the bomb. We were sitting on our apartment's tiny balcony, a couple of beers between us, the city stretching out like a promise. He turned to me and said, "I need a real investor. I'm talking next level. Branding, vans, tech marketing. We're right there, Trav, right on the edge. I can feel it." I already knew where this was going. He didn't even have to ask yet. I'm putting together a proper launch. 1 year, and we'll be millionaires. I swear to God. And that's when I did the dumbest thing I've ever done in my life. I gave him everything. I had $11,000 saved, the entire emergency fund I'd been building since I was 17. Took out a personal loan for another $7,000 in my name. Said it was for education because the bank wouldn't give me that much for business without a plan. Signed my name on dotted lines I didn't even fully read because Josh said he needed it fast. He made me a partner on paper. Said we'd split it all 50-50 once it took off. I didn't even care about the cut. I just wanted to believe in something. I wanted to believe in him. For a few weeks, it looked like maybe I hadn't made the biggest mistake of my life. He found a developer on Fiverr to build the app, hired 2 part-time drivers, wrapped the Civic in Fresh Drive decals, and launched a Facebook ad campaign. Orders picked up. We hit 50, then 60 customers. People liked the personal touch, the way he remembered their dog's name or called ahead to confirm eggs were in stock. Josh was electric. He could sell water to a drowning man. And for a while, I thought maybe, just maybe, the drowning man would come back for more. But then things started to get weird. Receipts stopped matching up. Inventory was short. One of the drivers quit and said he hadn't been paid in 2 weeks. The developer ghosted us after the first round of updates. Josh said it was all fine, growing pains, just hiccups on the road to greatness. But I started to see cracks, real ones. Like how he'd take the business card to bars and treat rounds of drinks as networking expenses. How he suddenly had a new pair of sneakers every time I came home. I'd ask questions, and he'd get defensive. Talked faster. Changed the subject. Got angry. One night, I brought up the budget. just calmly asked for the latest spreadsheet. You think I'm screwing you? He snapped. I think we need to know where the money's going. I am the money, he shouted. Without me, this whole thing is just a spreadsheet. I didn't sleep that night. Sat in the living room staring at my loan paperwork, thinking about my mom, who had always warned me that loyalty didn't mean blind faith. I tried to step back. Let him run it. Gave it a month. Orders dropped. Complaints came in. One customer said they got moldy produce twice in a row. Another said Josh promised them a refund and never sent it. I checked the business account, and the balance was under $200. We were hemorrhaging money, and he was still talking about expansion. I confronted him in June. Calm, direct, no yelling. Just wanted to see the books, talk like adults. He wouldn't look at me. Just said, you're either in or you're out. That's when I knew. I'd lost 18 grand. My savings. My credit score. My trust. But worse than all of that, I'd lost my best friend. And I don't think he even noticed. For a little while, it actually felt like we were going to make it. Fresh Drive was picking up traction in ways I never expected. The Facebook ad campaign Josh ran somehow went semi-viral in a few neighborhoods. We were suddenly fielding calls from small office buildings that wanted weekly deliveries for their break rooms. Then a local co-op offered us a small supply partnership, and we landed a recurring gig with a downtown gym chain that needed healthy snacks and smoothies stocked daily. It was nuts. We were flying. I was still doing my full-time warehouse job at first, but within a few months, I was spending more hours on Fresh Drive than anything else. I'd clock out at 4:30, go straight to our drop-off point in West Loop, and pack boxes till midnight. Then I'd wake up early and help with early deliveries before heading to work again. 14-hour days minimum, and not because anyone made me, but because I believed in what we were building. Even though Josh kept saying I was just the money guy, I was the one balancing the books, following up on contracts, managing driver schedules when they no-showed, and fielding late-night texts from pissed-off clients when they got the wrong brand of oat milk. Josh, on the other hand, had suddenly become the face of the brand. He started doing promo videos, filming himself in our shared apartment's kitchen like he was running a food empire. He bought this DSLR camera and a ring light, and suddenly everything was about content. He was talking like a startup guru on Twitter, quoting Elon Musk and tweeting nonsense about disruption and reinventing the supply chain. I laughed at first, but then the tone shifted. He stopped showing up to most delivery shifts, stopped answering client emails, said he was networking. The networking turned into club appearances, party invites, fancy rooftop events with influencers and tech bros who talked fast and said nothing. He'd come home drunk or high, crashing on the couch in clothes that reeked of tequila and cologne. That's when I saw the first hoodie. It was custom, black, and minimalist, with the Fresh Drive logo embroidered in silver on the chest and his name stitched in white across the back. I asked him if it was a gift or something. He just smiled and said, "Nah, I had a few made. For branding." Then came the Tesla. A white Model 3 parked outside our apartment like it belonged to a startup founder on the cover of Forbes. When I saw it, I thought he'd borrowed it, or maybe it was a rental for a pitch meeting or something. But nope, he bought it outright. When I asked him where the money came from, he said we were finally seeing returns and told me to relax. He said I needed to think bigger, and that image was part of success. Meanwhile, I was still driving my 2007 Corolla with a dented bumper and a door that didn't always lock. The part that really got me was the parties. He started throwing these after-hours gatherings at rented lofts, paid DJs, open bar. Half the people there had nothing to do with Fresh Drive, but all of them seemed to know Josh. He called it brand community building. I called it lighting money on fire. I showed up to one of them in my warehouse uniform, still sweating from the delivery runs I'd finished that afternoon, and I swear half the people looked at me like I was lost. I found Josh on the balcony, drink in hand, laughing with some guy in a blazer who kept calling himself a growth consultant. When I pulled him aside and asked what the hell we were doing throwing parties when our supplier invoices were still overdue, he gave me that look he always used when he thought I was being small-minded. "Travis, you're stuck in the weeds, man. Let me handle the vision." But the final straw came when I asked for something simple. Paperwork. We were sitting at this overpriced taco place he liked because it had craft tequila and candles on every table. I brought a manila folder with a rough draft of a partnership agreement. Nothing fancy, just a clean, written record of my equity. He didn't even look at it, just shoved it back toward me and said, "You're my brother. What paperwork? Come on, don't insult me." I didn't say anything right away. Just sat there while the waiter brought our food and Josh started scrolling through his phone like we hadn't just glossed over $18,000 and 6 months of unpaid labor. He was already on to something else, talking about expansion into Milwaukee, how we should launch a juice brand, maybe get influencers to do TikToks. I nodded and picked at my food, But something inside me shifted right then. It was like I finally saw the whole thing for what it was. I had been grinding myself into the ground while he played founder cosplay with startup money we didn't actually have. I kept telling myself that we were building something, but what we were really doing was building him his lifestyle, his image, his name. And I was just the guy sweating in the background, hoping one day he'd hand me the keys to the house I helped build. It was a little over a year into the chaos when everything finally stopped looking like growth and started smelling like rot. I was at my day job, still pulling half shifts at the warehouse because Fresh Drive didn't pay me a cent, and I got this letter forwarded from the shared mailbox we used for the company. Thick envelope. Government seal. That kind of weight you feel in your chest before you even open it. I took it into the break room and sat down under the busted fluorescent light with my lunch still untouched in front of me. It was from the IRS. They were beginning an audit. At first, I thought it was a mistake. I figured maybe it was just a formality or a check-in or something minor we could clean up. But no, it was serious. It said we hadn't filed any federal taxes for the business not once. No quarterly payments, no annual returns. Nothing. There was a list of deadlines missed, warnings that had apparently been sent months earlier, and a polite but firm note that an investigation was underway. I texted Josh immediately. He replied like it was nothing. Yeah, I've been meaning to get to that. I called him, and he didn't answer. Called again. Straight to voicemail. I left work early, walked into our apartment, and found him on the couch watching some documentary about startups that scaled too fast. He had a smoothie in his hand and was wearing one of those hoodies again. I didn't even say hello. Just dropped the letter in front of him and waited. He read through it slowly like he was seeing it for the first time. Then he laughed. Actually laughed, and said, "Relax, man. This stuff happens. It's just paperwork." I was stunned. I asked him who was handling the taxes. He said, "You know, I've been keeping everything organized." I demanded to see the records, and that's when he pulled out his laptop and opened a folder called Money Stuff. It was a collection of spreadsheets in Google Docs. No software, no accountant, just color-coded tabs labeled invoices, driver's pay, big deals, and one that said owed LOL. I wish I was joking. I went through every tab, every row, every messed up formula, and felt like I was drowning. It wasn't even sloppy, it was reckless. Vendor payments marked TBD. A line item for DJ $400 under client acquisitions. Half of it was blank, and the other half was straight up nonsense. I asked him when he planned to file anything. He just shrugged and said he thought maybe one of the banks we'd worked with had handled it, or that it wasn't a big deal yet. But it was a big deal. A massive one. The IRS doesn't knock on your door unless you've ignored them long enough that they're ready to break it down. I spent the next 2 nights trying to make sense of it all. I called a CPA I found online, who told me we were in way deeper than I realized. Late penalties, back taxes, interest, easily in the tens of thousands. And that was assuming there were no fraud charges. I didn't sleep. I barely ate. And then Josh hit me with the next level of insanity. He came into my room one night, no warning, holding a can of beer and speaking faster than usual. Said he had a plan. Said he'd talked to someone, a friend of a friend who worked at this private equity light group that was interested in Fresh Drive's growth model. They just needed to see that we weren't underwater. He said we needed to clean the books fast, pay the outstanding taxes, and settle a few vendor debts so the company would look stable on paper. It's just temporary, he said. We just need to survive this storm, and then we're golden. I knew where this was going, and I wanted to scream. I asked him outright, "How much do you need?" He didn't even hesitate. 30 grand. But we'll pay it back in 3 months. I swear on my mother. I told him I didn't have that kind of money. He said he knew, but he'd already looked into it. There was a personal loan I could qualify for based on my current job and credit. Said he could co-sign, but it'd be better if I just ran it solo to keep things clean. I didn't answer him that night. I told him I needed to think. I lay awake until dawn, staring at the ceiling with my stomach in knots. Thinking about how much I'd already sunk into this black hole he kept calling a business. $18,000 gone, my savings obliterated, my credit already dented. But I kept thinking about what would happen if it all collapsed. My name on the IRS papers, my social tie to the business, the debt collectors, the ruined credit. It didn't even feel like a choice anymore. It felt like pulling the e-brake on a car that was already skidding off a cliff. So I took the loan. $30,000. My name. No backup. No collateral. I told myself this was the last time. That this was it, the final shot. 3 months, he said. We'd pay it off in 3 months. Then everything would be fine. But deep down, I think I already knew I'd just handed a drowning man another anchor. It was the second week of February, cold as hell, and wet in that Chicago way that seeps into your bones no matter how many layers you wear. I was running late to the office because the bus stalled on North Avenue, and I had to walk the last 5 blocks in slush. My boots were soaked, my fingers numb, and I was still half hoping I'd walk into that glass front office and find Josh on a call or hunched over his laptop, pretending to grind while sipping overpriced coffee. But when I turned the corner, I saw it immediately. No lights. No reflection in the windows. Just a paper sign taped to the door that read "Notice of Seizure" in black marker. I stood there for maybe a minute. 2. Not even moving. Just staring at that sign like I could will it to say something different. I pulled out my keys anyway. Slid them into the lock like some idiot in denial, twisting it like maybe this was all a mistake. It wasn't. The lock had been changed. I pressed my face to the glass, palms cupped to the window, trying to see through the reflection. Inside, the desks were gone. The chairs. The couch Josh had insisted we buy on Craigslist for the vibe. The only thing left was the cheap vinyl Fresh Drive logo still stuck to the far wall, crooked and peeling at one corner like it had given up trying to stay relevant. I called Josh. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. Same. Send a text. Where are you? We need to talk. No reply. That was the last time I ever heard his phone ring. 3 days later, I came home to a fat envelope from the bank. Inside was a notification of default. The $30,000 loan I had taken to save the company had missed 2 payments, and now they were escalating collections. The next day I got another letter. This one from a vendor in Iowa that we'd used for bulk dry goods. They were demanding payment for an outstanding balance of $12,472. I didn't even know we'd ordered from them in 6 months. Then came the worst one. A formal notice from Cook County Court. A creditor lawsuit. Apparently Josh had signed up for a business line of credit under my name, using my social, my address, and a forged signature. Total amount owed, $28,000 and change. I sat on my apartment floor surrounded by documents, bills, legal notices, and folders I hadn't opened in weeks. My hands were shaking so bad I had to put the papers down. My phone buzzed with another unknown number. I didn't even answer it. I already knew it was a collector. They'd been calling nonstop, each one more aggressive than the last. Some of them had my old job's number. One even contacted my landlord. The walls were closing in. I went to Josh's place that night. Knocked. Nothing. I waited an hour in the cold. No lights. No movement. I banged on the door until someone upstairs leaned out their window and yelled at me to shut up. I called the landlord the next morning pretending to be a relative. She said he'd moved out 3 weeks ago. No forwarding address. I checked his social media. All gone. Instagram deactivated. Facebook wiped. Twitter last active 2 months earlier with a post about new beginnings. His email bounced back. I even tried messaging one of the girls who used to hang around during those rooftop parties. She said she hadn't seen him in weeks and that he'd gone off the grid to focus. Whatever that meant. I filed a police report. Gave them everything. My name on the loans, the forged credit, the signed documents I never saw until they came with court stamps. The officer barely looked up while taking my statement. Said it was probably a civil matter unless I could prove clear intent to defraud. I asked what that even meant, and he just shrugged and handed me a card for a legal aid service. By March, my debt totaled just over $71,000. All under my name. All without a penny in return. I went to the IRS again, with my tail between my legs, trying to explain that the company had gone under, that my partner was missing, that I had no idea what to do next. They weren't sympathetic. Just handed me another stack of forms and said I should get legal representation. I sold my car to make a partial payment, picked up extra shifts at the warehouse, and started driving for delivery apps at night. I didn't tell anyone. Not my parents. Not my coworkers. I didn't want to hear the judgment or see that look in their eyes that said you should have known. And maybe they were right. Maybe I should have known. But the thing that really kills me isn't the money, or the hours, or the sleepless nights filled with cold calls and automated messages from debt collectors. It's the fact that I spent a decade believing Josh was my brother. And when it all came down, when the walls caved in and everything burned, he didn't just disappear. He left me to burn with it. The thing no one tells you about hitting bottom is how quiet it is. Not dramatic, not cinematic, just still and empty. I sold my car first, listed it online, and watched a guy hand me $3,900 in cash like he was doing me a favor. Then the furniture, my bed, my couch, the desk I built from 2 sawhorses, and a door. Gone. The TV went next. A guy from Cicero came with a truck and loaded it without even looking at me. The air fryer, the microwave, the shelf full of cookbooks I hadn't opened in a year, they all followed. I moved into a trailer parked on the edge of a gravel lot west of the city, past the industrial park where delivery trucks went to die. It smelled like damp carpet and stale cigarettes, and the only thing that worked right was the heater, which roared like an engine every time it kicked on. It was technically rented, but the owner didn't care what I did inside as long as I handed over the $300 in cash every Friday. I slept on a twin mattress that barely fit between the kitchenette and the wall. The shower dripped rust. I kept my food in a cooler because the mini fridge didn't stay cold unless I smacked it. During the day, I worked at an Amazon warehouse sorting packages for minimum wage and no benefits. I wore a back brace and steel-toe boots, and still came home every night with my spine on fire. The job was fast, repetitive, loud. You didn't talk. You didn't look around. You moved. That was the rule. At night, I put on a security uniform and sat in a folding chair outside a distribution center on the south side. 12 hours straight. Most nights alone. Just me, a flashlight, and the radio. Some nights I watched raccoons fight in the dumpsters. Other nights I listened to truckers swap stories on CB channels just to remember what human voices sounded like. My credit rating dropped below 500 within a month. I stopped opening letters. I already knew what they said. Missed payments, threats of garnishment, more court dates. The collectors were calling nonstop. I kept my phone on silent and only checked voicemails in batches. Most of them started with automated voices. Some were just people sighing before they started reading off what I owed. My friends stopped calling. Not suddenly, but gradually. At first it was, let's grab a drink sometime. Or, hit me up when you're back on your feet. Then nothing. They didn't know what to say, and I didn't blame them. I couldn't talk about anything without sounding bitter. Even if I tried to pretend things were fine, I could feel them pulling away, not wanting to get too close to whatever mess I had become. Rachel blocked me. I don't know when it happened, just that one day her messages stopped delivering. She didn't know me anything. I guess I just hoped she might still ask if I was okay. She didn't. Last time I saw her was months ago, at a Walgreens. She turned the corner, saw me, and froze. I smiled. She didn't. Just turned around and walked out like I wasn't even there. Some nights, I lay awake staring at the stained ceiling of the trailer, listening to trucks roll past on the highway, and wondered if this was it. If this was just life now. A cycle of double shifts, microwave ramen, and bad credit. I kept my phone on the nightstand just in case Josh texted, even though I hated myself every time I looked at it. I kept telling myself it wasn't about forgiveness. It was about closure. But that was a lie. I wanted to scream at him. I wanted him to see what he left me in. I wanted him to feel a fraction of the weight I was carrying alone. But there was nothing. No message. No apology. No trace. Just me in a rusted-out trailer, waiting for the next shift to start. It was just past 6 in the evening. End of March. Still cold, but the kind of cold that hinted at spring if you stood in the right patch of sun. I was just finishing my shift at the warehouse, shoulders aching, sweat freezing on the back of my neck, when I saw it. This gleaming, white BMW parked near the loading dock like it had taken a wrong turn into the wrong life. I thought maybe it belonged to a manager or a customer or someone lost. Then he stepped out. Josh. Hair cut clean, beard lined up, designer hoodie under some stupid shiny bomber jacket, like he had just walked off a billboard for tech bros who vacation in Tulum. I stood there frozen for a second, hands still in my gloves, fingers clenched into fists before I even realized it. He smiled like we'd just seen each other last weekend, like nothing had happened, like I wasn't walking out of 12-hour shifts into a trailer with a leaky roof and 4 digits of overdue bills to my name. Travis, he said, grinning like an idiot. Just wanted to make sure you were okay. I didn't say anything. Couldn't. Not because I didn't have anything to say. I had too much. My heart was racing, jaw tight, and all I could hear was the sound of that lock clicking shut on the office door the day everything collapsed. All I could see was my name on the court letters, the loan statements, the email reminders that I didn't have enough in my account to cover the minimum payment. He leaned back against the car, arms crossed, like he was about to launch into a TED Talk. You've always been a survivor, bro, he said, like it was some kind of compliment. I knew you'd land on your feet. I laughed. I actually laughed, but there was nothing in it. It came out sharp, bitter, like gravel in my throat. He didn't flinch, just nodded like he understood. Then he looked around, like he expected someone to be filming us, or maybe waiting to congratulate him for this brave outreach to his abandoned, bankrupt former friend. I've been working on something new, he said. A startup, real clean, streamlined. Learned a lot from last time, you know? Got backing this time too. Couple guys out west, real money. He said it like it was a gift he was offering me. I was thinking, he continued, you could get in on the action. Help build it. We've done it before, right? Done it before. That's what he called it. Like the last 3 years of my life were just a warm-up round. Like losing everything, sleeping in a trailer, working 2 jobs to cover debt that wasn't even mine. Like that was just part of the game. I felt something twist in my gut, deep and sharp. I wanted to hit him. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab him by the collar and drag him back to the trailer and show him what surviving actually looked like. But I didn't move. I just stood there, staring at him, at the way his shoes gleamed under the loading dock lights. At the car. At the smug smile that hadn't changed one bit. I asked him one question. You got my number, right? He nodded. Then you knew where I was. He looked at the ground, shrugged. I figured you needed space. I walked past him without another word, didn't stop, didn't look back. Just kept walking toward the bus stop, where the wind was sharp and the bench was cold, and no one expected me to forget the kind of person he really was. I kept my face neutral when I agreed to meet him. Said sure, let's catch up, make it look like old times. Picked a coffee shop off Milwaukee Avenue, not far from where our first supplier used to be, back when we thought we were building something real. I showed up early, took the booth near the back by the window. Wore the same flannel I always did, faded at the sleeves, nothing that said I was planning anything. Just another tired guy getting a coffee on a Tuesday. He came in like he owned the place. Still had the same jacket, same fake casual walk like the whole world was background music to whatever monologue he was preparing. We didn't shake hands. He slid into the seat across from me, ordered something stupid with oat milk and agave syrup, and leaned back like we were about to brainstorm. I already had my phone set on the bench between me and the wall, screen blacked out, recording. He started with small talk. How was work? How was life? How had I been holding up? I gave him nothing. Just nodded, let him fill the silence. Eventually he got to it. So, listen, he said, hands folded like he was pitching an investor. I wanted to clear the air. Last time things went sideways. I should have looped you in earlier. I didn't respond. Just waited. He took that as permission. The fresh drive thing. Look, it got complicated, man. The paperwork, the debt, the audit, all of it. I had to move fast. I had investors on the hook, and no one was going to touch us with that mess hanging over the name. So I restructured. Rebranded, you mean? I said. He nodded, not even flinching. Yeah, I registered the new entity under my name. Clean start. No baggage. It was the only way to get new money in. I didn't have a choice. I asked him flat out, and my share? He smiled like I'd just asked about an old baseball card. Come on, Trav. You were never listed on anything official. We talked about that. Remember? You said you didn't care. You said, just focus on building. That's what you said. He leaned in, voice lower now, like we were conspiring. Look, I was just taking advantage of the situation. That's what entrepreneurs do. The window was closing. People were writing checks. If I hadn't done what I did, we'd both be screwed. I just stared at him, let the silence drag. Then he added, besides, you didn't lose anything. You weren't the CEO. You weren't the face. You never wanted to be. I felt my jaw tighten, but I didn't say anything. Didn't flinch. Just let the words land. He kept going, like he was trying to convince himself. You said you didn't want titles. You said, just let me handle operations. That's what you always said. So I did. I handled it. He took a sip of his drink and smiled again, like the whole thing had been some savvy maneuver instead of the slow destruction of everything I'd built with him. He actually sat back and laughed. And look at you, he said. Still here. Still kicking. You've always been a survivor, man. That's your thing. I nodded slowly. I wanted to hit him. I wanted to flip the table and drag him into the street and yell in his face until someone called the cops. But instead, I just picked up my coffee, took a sip, and asked him what the new company was called. He told me. I smiled back, a cold, quiet smile that didn't reach my eyes. Then I stood up, said I had to run, and thanked him for the coffee. My phone was still recording when I walked out the door. I didn't yell. I didn't show up at his apartment. I didn't send some angry, drunken text in the middle of the night like I used to imagine. I didn't do anything loud at all. Instead, I sat in the trailer that had become my whole life, closed the door, turned off the overhead light, and played back the recording. Over and over, until I knew every pause, every smirk in his voice, every word he said like it was carved into my skull. Then I called a lawyer. Not some big firm downtown. Just a guy a friend of a friend recommended who worked out of a cramped little office above a liquor store. I played him the recording, handed over every email, invoice, and document I'd collected from the beginning to the end. He didn't promise miracles, didn't act impressed, just leaned back in his chair and said, he's an idiot. A dangerous one, but still an idiot. While he worked on the legal side, I handled the other part. I made a throwaway Reddit account, picked a startup sub that gets a decent amount of traction, and wrote everything out. Not dramatized, not angry, just facts, clean and surgical, like a case file. I titled it, My Co-Founder Stole Everything. I attached the receipts, screenshots, the text messages, and at the very bottom, I posted a clipped, clean version of the audio. The part where Josh said, I re-registered the company under my name. I was just taking advantage of the situation. Then the line that made my skin crawl every time I heard it. You didn't lose anything. You're not a CEO. I didn't even check it that night. Just posted and walked away. It was viral by morning. People were furious. Found his new company's site, his LinkedIn, One guy in the comments recognized Josh from a pitch event in Palo Alto. Another said they'd seen him listed on a founder panel next month. Startups and VCs eat this kind of thing alive once it gets out in the open. By the end of the week, 2 incubators cut ties with him, pulled his company's page from their portfolio lists. One startup blog ran the story and called it the co-founder from hell. The week after that, I got an email from my lawyer. One of Josh's investors had reached out, wanting details. Another lawsuit followed. Then another. Apparently, a few of the guys who bought into his clean new entity hadn't known about the IRS investigation, the unpaid taxes, or the debt trail tied to the original business. He'd sold them on the same dream he'd sold me, dressed up in better branding. I never answered Josh's call when it came. Blocked the number after I saw it light up my phone at 2 in the morning. He left one voicemail. Slurred voice. Sounded like he'd been drinking. Said, "You don't know what you've done." He was wrong. I knew exactly what I'd done. I told the truth. Quietly. Completely. And I let it do the work. It's been a year. I still live small. No big place. No shiny car. No big startup dreams taped to the wall. But it's mine. I moved out of the trailer 6 months ago and into a 1-bedroom apartment above a hardware store in Berwyn. The walls are thin, the heat's uneven, and the pipes rattle when I run the shower. But it's clean, it's quiet, and for the first time in a long time, it feels like something solid under my feet. I got promoted last fall. Manager at a logistics company that actually gives a damn about how things run. I don't wear a suit, I don't have a fancy office, but I've got a crew I trust and numbers I own. I put in real work, and I see it pay off, even if it's slow. I'm not out of debt yet. The credit score is still bruised, and I've got years to go before the bank stops sending me reminders, but I'm climbing. One bill at a time. One paycheck at a time. It's not glamorous. It's not loud, but it's mine. My circle's smaller now. Tighter. People I met after it all went down. Guys on the floor, a few folks from the night shift who knew what it meant to hustle without chasing cameras. They didn't know Josh, and they don't ask about him. They know me as I am now. The guy who works hard, doesn't bullshit, and doesn't pretend he's building the next big thing. Just a guy who shows up when it counts. Someone asked me the other day if I'd forgiven him. Josh. I didn't even have to think. I said, I forgave myself for trusting him so blindly. I have not forgiven him, and I will never forgive him. Because some things don't get a clean slate. Some people choose who they are, and when they do, you believe them. And Josh showed me exactly who he was. The betrayal wasn't just business or money. It was time. It was belief. It was the version of myself I gave to that friendship without question. I'll carry that for a long time, but not as a victim, just as someone who lived through it. I don't look for him anymore. Don't check his name. Don't scroll to see if he's rebuilding somewhere else under another logo or another pitch. He doesn't matter. What matters is I built something real after all of it, and I did it without shortcuts, without lies, without him. That's my story. What would you have done in my place? Would you have walked away sooner? Would you have forgiven him? Let me know, really. I want to hear how you see it.